Do you like being in control? Do you feel more comfortable in the driver's seat than in the passenger seat? Because if I'm honest, I do too. Hi, I'm Scarlett Classic, and welcome to Classic Advice, a mental health podcast offering guidance for resilient souls anchoring calm amid the chaos. There's something about being in control that makes us feel like we're, safer, or maybe more prepared, or like nothing could go wrong because we're the one hanging onto the wheel. I'm not someone that has been scared to fly on airplanes, but probably a lot of that has to do with the fact that I've been on them when I was really young and So I had a lot of time on them when I was young, but I do know some people that don't like airplanes specifically for the reason that it is because they're not the ones piloting the aircraft. But here's the hard truth. Just because you're holding on tightly to that steering wheel doesn't necessarily mean that we're in control. Just the other day when I was driving my son back home to his dad's, we were on the opposite side of the highway, but the oncoming traffic, and there's a big median, so big space between highways. We were not really in any danger, but the vehicle, there was a truck hauling a big, like, fifth wheel cattle trailer, and his wheel, rim and all, came flying off going 110 kilometers an hour, which is probably roughly like 60 or 70 miles per hour, give or take. And it bounced like incredibly high, and thank goodness there was no one really close behind him or beside him, because that tire bounced back and forth all over that highway, and then it came to a rolling stop in the ditch. But even though that driver, even though the person driving the truck was, hands on the wheel and felt like he was in control, sometimes things fail on us that are completely outside of our control. And just to be clear, nobody was hurt. The truck pulled off to the side and it was all fine. But things break down on us and things don't go our way sometimes that are outside of our control. And just because we're in that driver's seat doesn't necessarily promise safety. Sometimes we have this illusion that if we are holding on really tight, that we think control promises safety. And in some cases, it does. It depends on the circumstance. But accidents happen and things fail, and we can have this illusion that the tighter we hang on to the reins, the more control we have. But sometimes all that does is it delivers exhaustion because we're hanging on so incredibly tight. I don't have a horse currently. It's in my future plans. Again, we're, building the property and stuff like that. But when I was riding a lot and when I did have my own horse, I was training this one that liked to buck when she was scared or spooked or whatever, and sometimes that instinct is to hang on to the saddle horn or the reins tighter when they go and do something like that. But I can't even tell you how many times I have jumped off the back of a horse when they started bucking, because I am not a bronc rider, and it kind of depends on how they're bucking. Sometimes if it's just a light little, like, crow hop is what they call them, yeah, it's fine, I can stay on. But I learned the hard way by trying to stay on when they were really going crazy, and it did not end well. The horse is fine, but I broke my arm, so I know better. I just jump off, and then we, go back to basics and go back to the round pen, And I won't bore you with details of how to train a horse, but it's sometimes we think that the longer we try to hang on and the tighter we hang on, we don't really gain any more control. We're just exhausting ourselves and learning when it's time to jump off. That timing, when to let go. And why do we do this? Why do we hang on so tight? Because rationally, when we think about it, a lot of the time we'll realize that, oh yeah, no, I really should have jumped off. I really should have let go. Or no, the pilot has all of this training to learn how to fly aircrafts, and they do all these pre-checks, and yeah, it doesn't mean that, your tire can't fly off in the middle of the highway or something can't fail on an airplane, but why is it that we obsess about control? Because this goes for hanging on too tightly to people too. I have held on too tightly to relationships, and in the end, it made the relationship fail. Why do we do this? And when I was thinking about it, I was thinking, well, maybe this need of control is just that fear of losing people we love, or fear of, the plane crashing, or the car going in the ditch, or, you name it. Fear of losing whatever it is that we're hanging on so tightly to. Fear of things going wrong, like with the aircraft. Fear of not being enough for our loved ones. So we hang on really, really tightly. We grip tighter, and we try to manage the outcomes, and we try to predict everything, and we try to hold on to people exactly, where we want them, so to speak, because we think, well, if I can just keep this steady, then we'll be okay, or I'll be okay. But it just doesn't really work like that in my experience. And, as much as I hate to say it, I don't think I was holding on really tight and trying to control my life because I was, this strong person. I was doing it because deep down inside, I was actually just scared. I was terrified. I remember in my first marriage, I was so incredibly terrified of losing my husband. And I did a lot of things in the relationship and that I could have done better. Looking back, hindsight's 20/20, But I was hanging on, and my fear, my worst fear came true because I did end up losing him in the end. Not just because of that one thing. I mean, a marriage ends because there's multiple things that are going wrong. But I think it was one of the contributing factors on my end anyways. Trying to people please too much, trying to hold on too tight. And that need of control turns into such a heavy load and so much like a bottle under pressure. Like a pop can when you shake it up and then you open it right away and everything just comes flying out. Or maybe you never did that as a kid. I had this one friend growing up, and she would love to do that out in the bush. She would shake a pop can as hard as she possibly could. And of course it was her dad's favorite kind, so he hated it, but it was hilarious. It was hilarious because they had this treehouse way up high. And so she'd climb up there and shake this can of Coke as hard as she could and open it, and that Coke, the whole can would just empty out in like nanoseconds, just shoot like higher than the treetops, just like it was hilarious. But when we can be like that pop can of pressure when we're trying to control every little thing in our lives, and maybe at first it feels helpful, but over time, that pressure on yourself and that pressure on other people and that pressure that we put on these different situations that were never meant to be forced. Holding on too tightly, people feel like they are suffocating. That, I think, is the part that hurts the most, because we're not trying to push them away, we're trying to keep them close. And yet, the tighter we grip, the less space they have to breathe. And the more you try to hold on to everything together, the more everything just starts to pull away and fall apart. You know, I've experienced this with my own kids. The tighter I hold on, the more they pull away. And when I take a step back, they tend to come to me. They're 9, 13, and one's about to be 15, for context of how old they are. But I really noticed that, like, the more I hang on to these relationships, people just pull away. And it's so counterintuitive, and especially when you're someone that's a people pleaser and you're just trying to you don't want to lose them because that's your number one fear. It's so counterintuitive and goes against anything that we want to do. I understand that. Because that's the paradox. Letting go brings people back. You know, it's interesting what happens when you let that fear go. There's such a huge weight lifted off of your shoulders, because when you come to the realization that if people are going to love you whether they want to or not. People are going to stay because they want to, not from anything that you're doing. And when I first went into the relationship that I'm in now with Roy, I had to remind myself of that, because it was a lesson learned from my failed marriage and other past relationships that failed in the past. Was he is going to stay because he wants to. When we let go and we let people do what they want to do, we'll see what they want. And if they want to leave, then let them. This was a hard lesson that I had to learn when I went through my divorce and just co-parenting with my ex. My boys want to live with their dad. And that was so painful for me, because when I decided to become a mother, I never expected that I would ever not be I never expected that I would be co-parenting. I never expected that I wouldn't be in their, day to day and, not even living with my own children. That was so incredibly hard for me to learn. That was so incredibly hard for me to accept. Well, if you're going through this, you do have an idea, but holy smokes. Accepting things we have no control over. That was one of the things I didn't have control over. My kids wanted to live with their dad. So my oldest two live with their dad. But when I let go and I let them choose where they want to be, I still see them. I'm still in their life. It's just they want to live with their dad. And that's fine. Why shouldn't they want to live with their dad? Right? So sometimes just that learning to accept the things that we can't change. And when we loosen the reins on people. And I know that my boys appreciate that me and their dad aren't fighting over them in court, that we are letting them choose where they live. And, animals are a lot like this too. This doesn't just go for humans. I've trained a lot of dogs in my day, and I've trained, I wouldn't say a lot of horses, but I've trained, a fair amount. Off the top of my head, probably close to like a dozen. So not a huge number by any means, but a few. And they're the same. When we're training a dog, and I trained all of my dogs that they keep an eye on me, not the other way around. So when I go walking, if you watch my socials, I'll walk through a field or I'll walk down a trail or whatever. And I, 9 times out of 10, unless I'm, doing one that's in town or something, my dogs are with me. And I just walk and I do my social media posts as I'm walking. And I make sure that they're following me as I kind of keep an eye on them, but I don't call them unless they cross the fence line because we moved to a new property. So they're still learning their boundaries, but I walk around and they all know that they have to stay by my side because I've trained them that way. And my horses, I would always ask them to do something. And if they give me clear signals that they don't want to have it that day, then we do something else. There's been lots of times when I didn't work my horses at all. I just simply hung out with them. And those are some of my most favorite memories of just hanging with the horses or just hanging with the dogs and not doing any quote unquote training, but just letting them do their thing. The moment we relax our body and soften our energy and let go of that need of control, the amount of stress that leaves your body is absolutely incredible. Kids, we have this energy about us, and when we're trying to control everything, people feel that energy. And kids feel when you're stressed and holding on too tight, and when you're overwhelmed and all of that. And adults feel it too. We might not be, consciously aware of it, but they'll feel it too. People feel when you're stressed. And it's hard to connect when you're under that amount of stress. But when there's peace and when you're relaxed, this is something that over the past few days I've really tried to lean into my self-care and let go of some stress. And what I'm doing is I'm walking a lot more, and it's really helping my stress level, a lot. Because we can't control everything, but we can choose how tightly we hang on to it or hold on to it. Because that control is so exhausting. It's like control is tight, but when we just trust people to do what they want to do, it's not tight, it's loose. And that control is exhausting, whereas trust and letting go is almost like grounding in a way. Since I've been going on more walks, I feel way more grounded. And loosening my reins, so to speak. Letting things be. Not everything needs to be fixed or managed or needs our constant attention. Sometimes the most powerful thing that we can do is just step back and take a breath and loosen those reins. And go for a walk. Let people show you who they are. Let people show up on their own and meet you halfway. This is something that I used to tell my husband now when we first got together. I said, I love it when you say I love me. I love it when you say I love you. But what means the most to me is when you show me you love me. If you do that and, never say I love you, I will be super, super happy. And that might just be, my love language and stuff like that. But let people show you what they want. Because they will when you loosen that grip. And it doesn't mean that you don't care when you let go of the reins. It doesn't mean that I don't care about my 2 boys because I let them go live with my dad, their dad. That doesn't mean I love them less. If anything, it means it's me showing them that I love them more because I'm putting their wants and desires in front of my own. Because if I did what I wanted, they would be living with me. But it's not about me. It's about what they want. So ask yourself, are you holding on too tight? Are you holding on too tightly right now to something or someone? What are you afraid will happen if you let go a little bit? And instead of gripping harder this week, today, this month, I would encourage you to be brave and loosen the reins a little bit and soften your energy a little bit and just let things breathe. And it's not you giving up, not checking out, but just trusting a little bit more for people to show you what they want. You don't lose control when you let go. You finally give yourself room to breathe and let go of some stress. Thank you for tuning in to Classic Advice, guidance for resilient souls. May you stay anchored in what steadies you, rise resilient through what challenges you, and carry calm into whatever comes next. Take care. Love ya.